I hope everyone is joined. A very good afternoon to all the participants from different time zones across the globe. On behalf of IPM Group of Institutions, I, Rajiv Shah, extend a warm welcome to everyone to the international webinar on the topic Quality in Management Education and Research, Challenges and Opportunities, which is organized by Management Department, IPEM Group of Institutions, Ghaziabad, in collaboration with Ghaziabad Management Association and ARNI University. Humbly beginnings leading to great outcomes has been well brought out by the journey of IPEM Ghaziabad. With a legacy of over 27 years and over 30,000 alumni, IPEM stands tall in its glory on the education horizon. Established in 1996, this aim at imparting value-based education and excellent quality standards of knowledge, backed by knowledge and well-learned faculty, the college advances innovation and excellence by organizing intellectual sessions, interactive lectures, and other programs. Founded by Mr. J. Guru, a pioneer in education with more than 55 years of experience and research experience, and led by the founding leadership of our secretary, Mr. Abhinav, Director General, Dr. A.H. Malhotra, Executive Director, Dr. and Dean Academic and SOD of Management Department, Mr. Hassan Chawla. Our institute has 5 years of generating the world-class professional and to help to do towards the path of success. It is a result of the executive ethics of IPEM that the institute has been awarded by various prestigious bodies in last many years. IPEM has received Indian Achiever Award Excellence in Education 2021 and Best Excellence Institution in NCR Award and Shiksha Bharati Award by IPEM. I feel immensely elated to see that our institute has also been educated with the 8 by India. Research is polarized influence. It is spoken and trying with the purpose. Says Miss Dora Neely Custer with this quote. Before we move further, I would like to catch up attention on upcoming international conference on the theme Paradigm Shift in Business and Management, Challenges and Opportunities of Quality, Sustenance and Investment in Higher Management Education, which will be held on 27th January 2024. In collaboration with the Research Center, Malaysia, and Ghaziabad Management Association. We are enthusiastic to get participation from both sides. Kindly note that paper with best quality will also be awarded with best paper award. If any of the participants have any questions regarding the international conference and related to the topic of webinar, the participant can write the question in the chat box and they will be answered at the end of the session. I now take this opportunity to introduce our eminent speaker, Dr. Abhinav P. Tripathy. Dr. Abhinav Tripathy is an associate professor at Christ University, NCR, Delhi University. He has more than 20 years of experience in the domain of research, academics, consulting, and industry. His domain expertise is in the area of brand and its management, marketing analytics, retail marketing and analytics, digital and social media marketing, innovation and technology management, etc. Dr. Tripathy is an associate lifetime member of the Forum of Free Enterprises and various other marketing clubs and so on. Before his assignment in academics, he was associated with the senior position of marketing area in a company of repute like LG Chemical Energy and Medtronics India Private Limited. He has also worked as a policy and action researcher in the place of marketing innovation and design thinking. He published various articles and research papers in the Journal of International Meetings. He has more than a dozen papers on his research credentials, which are Scopus Index and under the ABDC category. He was also associated with training and employee engagement modules of ESN, Indian Oil, Uttam Sonatak, MTNL, Honda Motors, and I engaged Bhagnamita, BSC, NCT Delhi Government, BPT Lucknow, and several others in the past. I'm sure we all will have a lot to gain from him. With this, kindly allow me to welcome Dr. Tripathy to enlighten us with his virtuous words. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Rajivji. And the very prominent question is that, am I audible or not? That's the very first and the very foremost question to everyone. If any one of you can respond to me, am I audible or not?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, the second thing, while we are going for the online session, is that I wish to share my screen to you. So if I can get the user right here. Oh, I'm having. So allow me to share. I hope so that to every participant, my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, your screen is visible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, the topic that is assigned to me is the quality in management education and research, what the challenges and what the opportunities are. And as a teacher, I believe that this is something which is very close to me, as well as all the other teachers who are listening me. And allow me to tell you that it's not only the matter which is related with the teachers, but all the other participants. In fact, the students and the extended community which is associated with the teachers or the teaching job, or anyhow directly or indirectly getting affected because of the teachers or because of this profession called as educating someone. It's something which is going to get the part of this particular webinar. My all-time favorite, Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo was a person who was known for his revolutionary thoughts. His revolutionary thoughts are something which always creates a kind of dilemma in front of every human beings. कहते हैं समाज को दिशा देने का जो काम है वो दिशा देने का काम समाज के लोग करते हैं. And when I talk about a couple of fields, specifically in terms of what are the fields which are very relevant and which are prominent, which usually give a direction to the society, the very first thing which comes to our mind is theater, drama. And by the way, education in itself is something, or teaching in itself is something, which is half of the information sharing. And another half is that how you are presenting that information in a simplest possible way so that it's a proper blend of what is called as information along with some of the theatric work. In fact, I was going through a couple of literature, और यकीन मानिए almost in most of the literature it was being mentioned, जो कि हम conventional Indian wisdom में कभी हम मान नहीं पाते. हमारे लिए teacher और student दो अलग-अलग universe होते हैं, and both the universe are simultaneously present in one of the classroom. But still, the lot of distances are being observed when we talk about the student versus teacher relationship. But then, in most of the literature, it is being mentioned that, if possible, the teacher must have to adopt something called as theater in their classroom or inside the classroom. A disclaimer is there that theater का मतलब ये तो बिल्कुल नहीं है कि हम ड्रामा शुरू कर दें. But then the part is that the presentation of information should be like that. The set of student, and especially if I'm talking about the today's generation, they should not feel like the burden of getting educated. And we really have to release ourselves from what is being called as the burden of education to what is called as that liberating ourselves. In our Vedic literature, we have a hymn called as Ya Vidya Sya Vimukta. Vidya wo hai jo hame mukt kar de. Now, it's not possible that we are learning something. Why? Because we used to get more and more sedimented with something. And that is why I always appreciate two lines of Victor Hugo, who was from the French Revolution. He said that the person who opens the door or who opens the school door is the person who closes a prison. जो स्कूल के दरवाजे खोलता है, वो टीचर जो स्कूल के दरवाजे खोलता है, वो यकीन मानिए वो वही टीचर है जो जेल के दरवाजे बंद करता है. And it's something which talks about what's the social meaning of education. We are talking about what is being called as the challenges and opportunity, the kind of pressure that the management education and the research is having nowadays. But remember, first of all, we really have to accept that there is a role of this particular domain of specialty in our life. जब तक हम existence को मानते नहीं हैं, तो हम उस existence के लिए कभी तैयार ही नहीं हो पाते. And believe me, it's a basic fact which is very much clear in every domain of life. आप चाहे अपने personal relations की बात करें, आप किसी एक specific technology की बात करें, everywhere you will get that a lot of people, a lot of person, a lot of processes are there. That before raising something, before coming up with the thought process of that, is it really possible that by means of this particular information, I'm raising my standard? And then after that, raising the standards, asking the questions, the very first thing that you have to remember is that substantial amount of learning is being offered by that particular aspect of your life. So I always believe that education is one of the prominent role. Education usually play a very prominent role in society. When we have more educated society, more people who are educated, and believe me, more the people are educated, that means more there is a loss of fear. More there is a type of experiment that we are expecting in our life. More the people will come, more they will share. And remember, more that we can share, more is what we can learn. तो जितना हम शेयर करते हैं उतना ही हम लर्न करते हैं. और शेयरिंग की पहली फिलॉसफी आती है that it's something which actually gets started with the loss of fear. We keep on fearing ourselves that if we are going to share something to someone, will it be possible that he or she will accept the way that I wish that he should accept? Or it's going to happen in different way? So I presume and I believe that always you should always, and as a teacher, every teacher or every participant of this webinar always believe that education is a primary window by means of which we can talk to the world. It's not important that how many times you are looking at the mirror, but it's very important that how many times you are opening the window and taking a look to the entire world. Well, when I was talking to Dr. Mona, and when she shared out the view that we wish that you should talk about that current challenges and opportunity. I was of opinion that when this time was there, when there was no such challenge in front of education, ऐसा तो कभी हुआ ही नहीं इस देश में. And then as a student of history, I'm not a student of history, but I usually learn a lot of lessons from the history. So I try to navigate that. Was it ever happened that the things which we are experimenting right now, at that point of time, the environment was conducive for that? क्या चीजें जिस समय में हुई, जिस एक फ्रेम ऑफ माइंड के साथ हुई, क्या उस समय में उस माइंड फ्रेम के लिए समाज तैयार था, सोसाइटी तैयार थी? And then I got the answer, which was very surprising. Probability is there that when somebody said that Earth revolves around the sun, and the people were saying that you are crazy. धरती अपनी जगह पे स्टैटिक है, बिल्कुल स्टैटिक है. ये सूरज के सामने नहीं घूमती, बल्कि ये सूरज की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, ये सन की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है that it keeps on revolving around the earth. And the people who were having a kind of experimentation and have the ability to prove that what they are saying is correct, लोगों ने कहा कि तुम्हें जहर पीना पड़ेगा. And I think so that I'm talking about a person whose name is not something that can be hidden from a learning fraternity like you. So I was going through a couple of literature and I got one of the surprising literature. And I think so that almost all of you have must gone through this particular literature. In the very first initial document of very first page of the initial literature, he wrote that it was the best of the time and it was the worst of the time. And I keep on reminding myself whenever I'm going to start any new thing or anything which comes to that in the form of what is called as challenges and opportunity, remember that both goes hand in hand. Because it was the best of the time and it was the worst of the time. It is the best of the time and it is the worst of the time. अगर इसे लेमैन्स की टर्मिनोलॉजी में कहूं तो किसी भी चीज के लिए कभी अच्छा समय कभी होता ही नहीं और हर समय अच्छा होता है. Now these two lines which I have taken here is from a very famous novel. I would request any of the participants that if you can write in the chat box, if any one of you have seen these lines in any of the literature work, and if you can write anything in the chat box, any one of you, where you have seen these lines. It's a very inspiring one, but can you quote that from where I'm quoting this one so that I can get a little bit of audience, what is called as the audience attention also. I think so that webinars का एक सबसे बड़ा curse यही होता है कि that the people who are listening is listening or not, nobody knows. So I wish that if any one of you can write down that who was the person in the chat box itself. Okay, if you are raising hands, almost it's not possible for me to ask you because admin rights I'm not having. So I'm just serving as a presenter. If you are raising the hand, quite possible that you can write in the chat box. That's a better option because I can't allow someone to speak in with me. So better that if you are raising the hands, you can write down in the chat box. So I just waited and nobody informed, nobody's writing anything. So I'm just going for my next slide. And it was a very famous quote from a book called as The Tale of Two Cities, written by Charles Dickens. So Charles Dickens was the person who wrote a very famous novel. And that novel was The Tale of Two Cities. He wrote there that it was the best of the time, it was the worst of the time. He was talking about the two different countries of the world, two different cities, not the countries, sorry, apologies. The two different cities of the world. He was talking about that how the New York is different from England. And you know that while you are discussing how the New York is different from the England, the different contexts to be today. That's why when we are talking about that what the contemporary role of education is, why education is important, what the kind of the challenges that we are having in quality education, in fact, in terms of the management as well as other programs. So allow me to say that I really think so that there are the 6 to 7 major challenges which I realized as a teacher. And since I'm teaching the marketing subjects to my students of postgraduate as well as a couple of undergraduate programs, so my view to represent my things is a little bit oriented towards what is called as the perfect business situation. What I observed is that the value proposition is something which is a very fundamental challenge that we all are facing. Either I'm talking about the research or I'm talking about the quality education in management, especially the management education and research. I have interacted the number of people who used to say that, Dr. Tripathi, how it is possible that there could be a course called as the business of or bachelor degree in business management. Will it be possible to think about a course where from any of the discipline can enter, and then he or she can score, and then after that he or she can be appreciated like a business manager? Will it be possible that a mathematics graduate as well as a science graduate as well as a commerce graduate as well as an art graduate can join one program at one point of time and they can compete? And irony was that one of the student in fact raised this question. इस मैनेजमेंट प्रोग्राम को देखता हूं तो ऐसा लगता है कि यहाँ पर कछुए और खरगोश की दौड़ नहीं है, यहाँ पर कछुए के साथ खरगोश है, खरगोश के साथ जिराफ है, जिराफ के साथ शेर है, शेर के साथ न जाने कितने लोग हैं. So how it is possible that you are the part of a race where the multiple set of the people across the different demography, across the different set of the psychography, and then you are coming up with the course and you are trying to define that what could be the value proposition. So the very fundamental point which I'm just raising here is that the fundamental challenge is something which is called as the value proposition. We'll explain you later that why I am having this kind of opinion. But remember, one of the facts is that while we are talking about the value proposition, there's a very fundamental challenge in front of the management education. The second part is the industry academia interface. We'll talk about all these interfaces one by one. The third one, which I realized, is that innovation in terms of the teaching and research. Although nearly more than 6,000 Scopus Index journal, and they are publishing like anything. And believe me, they are publishing like anything. But the kind of the innovation in terms of the teaching and the research, what is expected is something which is missing. And you know that किसी ने कभी मुझे कहा था, and I think so that आप में से बहुत से लोगों ने ये बात सुनी होगी, that when you can explain any concept to a particular person who is in class 5th, जब आप किसी concept को किसी ऐसे बच्चे को समझा पाए कि वो क्लास 5th का बच्चा भी समझ ले, या एक छोटा बच्चा, मुझे लगता है क्लास 5th से उनका मतलब रहा होगा एक छोटे बच्चे को भी समझा सके any of the concept, even the concept of the jet propulsion, even the concept of what is called as the arithmetic logical gate operations. If you can explain so simply that even a student of a school-going student can have understanding, don't only believe that आपको वो concept आता है, या आपको वो बात समझ में आती है. So I do believe that one of the problem that the management education and the research is facing right now is that kind of innovation. Of course, we are having a lot of innovation, but the kind of the innovation, because innovation kabhi aisa nahi ho sakta hai, that we keep on believing that innovation is for the pleasure of mine. Innovation cannot be for the pleasure of yours. Innovation should always be as per the expectation of your customers, consumers. And in case of the education, I largely believe that to whom I'm serving. Well, the customer or the consumer is the bad word for education industry. But then I really have to accept out the thing that to whom I'm serving. And I'm answerable to my student. Now, my students are getting inside the classroom that the way that I wish to interact, the way that I wish that they should try to focus on any particular issue. If not, then certainly I have to do something. That will become the part of innovation. And believe me, that innovation is not something which is as tough as like that the jet propulsion technology or the Chandrayaan 3 or the Aditya 1 mission. It's very simple. The only thing is that we never used to ask the question to ourselves. We keep on believing that whatever the stuff that we are doing is the best stuff that anybody can have in this life. Then the third or the fourth sorry, the fourth part where we are talking about the accreditation and the quality assurance. And is the accreditation is the only method so that we can have the little bit of more assurance towards the quality. The way that we, the teaching community, is managing the accreditation is again a kind of the Herculean task. How the accreditation in itself can kill the entire subjectivity of education is something which is not a secret for me or for you. And you can go and ask to any of the teacher, they will explore and they will explain you this open secret in front of everyone. The ethics and the value probability is there that the kind of the loss of the ethics and the values that we are having in this society is something which is unimaginable. And that's why we are now thinking about that, how the ethics and the values can play a role in current educational system. Of course, Peter Drucker once said that if the things that you can't measure, that means to say that that will become the thing that you can't manage. अगर आप किसी चीज को measure नहीं कर सकते तो manage तो आप उसे नहीं ही कर सकते. So measuring and assessing the quality, that's again will become the part of the challenge for us, that how subjectivity can prefer or how the subjectivity can offer a better, you can say, assessment of the quality. Or we should focus more towards the objectivity. Then a lot of other questions which are pretty common in terms of what is called as the lack of industry relevancy. Of course, availability of the quality content as well as the quality delivery from the faculty is something which is again the part of the challenge. And this challenge is there because of there are certain limitations, certain boundaries. Now, talking about the very first one, and I prefer to finish up my things up to 4 o'clock. So I'm not going to spare a lot of time rather than preferring to give you a little bit of more time to interact with me, to ask a couple of questions. So when I talk about the value proposition, it's very much important that we should learn about that it's not the service, it's not the product which is important. Gone those days that we keep on believing that what we are offering is something which is very valuable to the society. And all the students who are attending this particular webinar and the faculty member, even partially, they will also be agree with me कि हर क्लासरूम में एक मेजॉरिटी ऑफ ऑडियंस ऐसा भी बैठा हुआ है जिसको कुछ भी लेना देना नहीं है that what you are talking, what you would explain, and how the explanation of your is actually meaningful for their life. They never used to try to sync the correlation between what you are teaching inside the classroom and how that teaching is going to give them a kind of benefit for their next coming stages of life, for next coming the kind of the problem that they are going to face in the life. So in case of marketing, we usually say that we must have to think about the value proposition. We should not conceptualize the model, what is called as the product or the service. Product or service utni important nahi hai. We really have to think about that, what the value that we can put forward. Now the question comes that what the value that we can put forward. I wish that my audience should be a little bit more attractive and more attentive also. और इस अट्रैक्शन और अटेंशन को चेक करने का मेरे पास एक छोटा सा टूल है. मैं सबसे पहले उस टूल के साथ चलूंगा. I'm just sharing one particular message to you. Okay. And I'm expecting that if all of you can respond. My question is to all my respondent that what you think so? What the value proposition that you are offering by means of management education? I'm repeating my question. What the value proposition that you are offering by means of management education? And हम इसके submission का जो तरीका है वो थोड़ा सा बदल के रखेंगे. I'm just trying to experiment a little bit here. Okay. I'm trying my best that it should work for you. In fact, meanwhile, if I can ask Mona ma'am, are you listening me? Hello. Okay.
Sir?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Actually, I wish to share one code for Mentimeter. That's
Okay.
the online format for word cloud.
Okay.
And I wish that if I can get a little bit of response from those who are attending the session. So if all of you can pay a little bit of attention towards the chat box itself, I'm going to put a code there and a link there. You just have to click on that link. And the question that I'm asking, you have to give the answer of that question. No, it's not a very difficult question. It's a very simple question. But then at the same point of time, I wish that if you can allow me to discuss out that what you wish to answer for these particular questions. So just wait for a minute, just a minute. And this is something that all of you will enjoy. So please check the chat box, everyone, check the chat box and try to answer the question. If you are getting the chat, everyone, the message, are you getting the message there? I just shared a web property to you. You just have to click on the same and try to answer the question that I just asked. And the question was very much simple. The question is that what you believe is that what you are, if you are student, so please respond like a student, that what you believe that what you are learning inside the management education. And if you are not a student, if you are a teacher, then I would request that you should respond me that what do you think, so that what the services that you are offering means, what the core product that you are offering. So that core product is something, your answer can be of one word only. I'm getting the 5 answers here. I'm now sharing my screen. Because I'm getting a couple of, and tell me that the screen is visible to you or not. If any one of you can respond that screen is visible or not.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And simultaneously, I'm getting now the 21 responses are there. More responses are expected here. I'm having 405 participants here. Question is very simple. As a student, what do you think, so that what you are getting inside the management education? And of course, if you are serving as an administrator or as a teacher, what you are getting by means of this management education. Okay. And the best part of the word cloud is that the name or the frame that's coming a little bit broader is something which most of the people are writing. So knowledge is coming like anything. Okay. Environment. A very good observation. Somebody's writing procrastination, although that work is now a little bit lesser one. Intensity is lesser one, but very good observation, the procrastination. Knowledge, okay, still. I wish if I can get a couple of more responses, so that should be a little bit more clear to everyone. See the way that the people are believing. 72 response. Great. So I think so that most of you are contributing. It's a simple click, and then the question is there. You just have to write what you think so. Education, leadership, management skills, talent management. Good enough. Good enough. And the moment I will reach 100, I will stop. That's sufficient enough. Sufficient enough. So if I can stop here, what is, you will get the changing symmetry of the words cloud. And that's the beauty of this particular property, that the way that the people are contributing is the way that the word cloud will automatically get changed. But if you're observing the slides here, there are the couple of terminologies which are pretty prominent and very available to you like anything. Knowledge is one of them. Education is one of them. Leadership is one of them. So it's a quick response from my respondent that I have received. And they largely believe that the management education is about, if I have to figure it out, the 4 different factors or the 4 important variables for this management education, where most of the people believe that management education is all about this. So I really have to say that information come knowledge, education, leadership, collaboration, and what is called as the time management. So prominent one is education, knowledge, leadership, collaboration. Thank you very much, first of all, for responding me 152 different responses I just received. I was not expecting. I'm very happy. In fact, now 157 responses are there. Now I'm moving back to my original screen. Thank you for responding and keep on inspiring me that, yes, you are listening me also. So that was the very first exercise which I thought that I should share with you, that when we talk about what is called as management education, what the value proposition that we usually believe that we are offering to our student, and what the value that they are expecting that they should get offered to them. A lot of students or a lot of the people were of opinion that it's a kind of education where the primary objective is to develop some leadership qualities. Now the question will come in terms of that, are we developing that leadership quality among the different set of the students? Is the course is empowered enough to develop that leadership quality? And then I really have to come across with that, is this course is made up for taking care of the leadership skills that someone is having? If not, then that means to say that I'm missing few of the coordinates of what is called as the value proposition. So my very first observation is that we really have to think about the value proposition. Now, why I'm talking about the value proposition is because of the reason. Nearly 1,113 is the rough data that I just received here. And these are the number of universities which are operating in this country. If we can have a layman's figure, I can say that 1,100 के अराउंड 1100 के करीब यूनिवर्सिटीज हैं जो ऑपरेट करती हैं इस कंट्री में. And then, since a lot of pressure is there on different educational bodies to get the gross enrollment ratios, to increase the gross enrollment ratio, to get the more number of people towards the education system. So I was just going through one of the observations which was shared by the government of India on 29th of January 2023. And as per that response, the total enrollment in higher education is nearly 4.14 crore. लगभग 4 करोड़ लोग हैं जिन्होंने खुद को enroll किया है higher educations के लिए. And either you are a good or the bad student of stats, that doesn't matter. But एक बार आप इस combination को देखिएगा, 4 करोड़ लोग उन्हें 1100 universities में. And then you will get a lot of answers, a lot of replication, a lot of observation from your side. Now, there must be something which we people keep on missing. And when I'm saying we people, that means to say you're not alone. I'm there. I'm also the part of that we people. And that part is that everyone is having his or her own set of objective. Probability is there that the government is having the objective of increasing the gross enrollment ratios. Teacher is in need of what is called as more than number of students. Institution is need of more the registration, because registrations, the byproduct of registration is what is called as the fee. Institutions are suffering from limited capacity to under capacity utilization. And the question comes like that, how to utilize our capacity at the maximum? And relevantly, frankly speaking, all the questions are relevant. What the government is thinking about the education is relevant. What you as a teacher is thinking is relevant. What the institution as a mechanism is thinking is relevant. And what you are experimenting inside the classroom is also relevant. The only thing which we are missing is that what the perspective, what the value proposition that we really have to offer. तो हम में से हर किसी ने अपने अपने मुताबिक इस वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन को बना लिया है. And I wish to quote this one, that this one is the very first and most important challenge that all of us are facing. Because everyone is having his or her own set of value proposition. हर किसी की अपनी एक सोच है, हर किसी की अपनी ऑब्जेक्टिव है, जो पूरी तरह से सही. I'm not saying that they are wrong. They are very good and quite possible that they are the objective for which we are there. But then at the same point of time, it's not the objective for which we created out the entire description. As a teacher, sometimes I believe that that was not the objective for which the entire work of the teaching, or what is called as the noble profession of teaching, get started. But then at the second point of time, I used to think like that, so what? I'm also the human being. Will it be possible for me to think like a machine every time? There are the days, the good, bad, and the ugly. And that's how I used to perceive the days on the behalf of the way that the days are going to respond to me. In case of industry, we are having a very good examples that how to promote, how to create the culture of value proposition. But what I have done is that I just figure out, because as a teacher, it's not only the responsibility that I should talk about the challenges, I should talk about that opportunity, what exists here. And I figure out that there are the 4 basic questions which, if we can manage out in a very thoughtful manner, we can have a better answer, a better utilization. And I just figure it out that what the 4 questions that we should ask, either as the owner of the institute, or as a teacher, or as a student, or as a community, extended community. The very first question, and if you are getting my screen here, the very first question is the question about that what attribute that our industry takes for granted. What about the stuff that we think so that it's taken for granted, we should eliminate. If you're going to eliminate, you are going to save the cost. If you're going to save the cost, ultimately the byproduct, the revenue or the profit is going to increase. But remember, while we are eliminating something which is taken for granted, we should be very much factful about facts and the figure. It's not based on the whims and the fancies of mine. My whims and fancies are not going to decide that what should get eliminated and how I should think about taken for granted. The second thought which I'm having is that I really have to think about that which attributes should be reduced to below the industry standards. There are the number of attributes. And believe me, if you are in this particular field and if you are serving in this particular sector, sometimes or other you really try to focus and you realized also that few of the attributes are there which we are just using. Why we are using, even we are not clear. My observation, my opportunity is that this is the right time that we should reduce those one which are below the industry standards. And the positive side is that which attributes should be increased to the above industry standards. When I'm saying industry, you should please believe that I'm talking about the academics, a serving industry, the teacher and the community, that means the teacher and the student community. And when I'm saying community, it's not the teacher alone. Along with the teacher, the student is there. And along with the student, the extended community, that is the part of those who are paying the fee, people who are watching you, the extended society where your students are observing and behaving, everything becomes the part of this particular big ecosystem called as the educational ecosystem. So my observation is that whatever the stuff which is taken for granted, you should eliminate that. There is no such thing called as taken for granted. Why we are offering the attribute which are below the industry standards should get reduced. Attributes should be increased so that we can have above the industry standards. And then the last point, which is the part of my third or the fourth point, that's called as the innovation. When I said innovation, so innovation is not only about that coming up with a new product idea. You know that what I have seen in most of the institution or the most of the academic system, that coming up with fancy idea about the new set of the courses is something which is going to pull the most of the audience. Not very correct. Not every time it's going to give you a kind of competitive edge. Say that if the market is being dominated with a couple of things, like if you are in this market, you are very much aware about that. Almost all the engineering colleges are having something called as the computer science, because everyone is in need of the computer science. In fact, I was talking to one of the university professor and he informed me that as of now, he's running 34 different sections of computer science. Now, 34 different sections of the computer science, that means why? And it's because of the reason that market is demanding. Now, there is a question that when we say that the market is demanding, so who is going to govern the market? Are we, the professional, the people, the institutions, are going to drive by the market, or we are going to drive the market? So that makes the difference of the opinion that in what way we are going to get driven by the market or we are going to drive the market. Quite possible that after a certain period of time, when the computers or something related with the software is not having that kind of the demand, then the people must have to think about something else. So that's how, when the value proposition is there, you are not going to, you will fall in trap of what is called as that, hey, what the market is expecting is what that I'm offering. And that's why the last point is pretty important as far as my wisdom is concerned, that which new attribute should be created that the industry has never offered. Whatever the extra that you can offer, which nobody else has offered. That's the very first opportunity or the challenge which I realized in current education system. The very second one, what I realized is something which is called as the industry academia interfaces. Institutions are there which are being promoted by industry professionals. They are the factor behind those particular educational institutions. I'm not going to check it out that what's the objective behind those educational institutions. It's a social charity or the tax, something tax horizon or something like related with the tax haven kind of facility, which is more important there. Or they really wish to contribute to the society. But then as an academic institution, and I'm talking about most of the institution of this country, not 1,100 university, but believe me, when I'm talking on the behalf of 700, 800, those universities, which are not the best of the university that this country is having. But anyhow, these universities are offering the different multiple set of the courses. And the problem that we are realizing is that how to fill the gap between the industry and the academia. You know that the industry is always having a belief that what the academia can offer is already being offered to them. And that is something which is called as employee. Academia is having a belief like that what the industry can offer is something that knowledge sharing, but nobody is ready to share the knowledge because a lot of challenges are there in front of industry that should I share or not share? Is it ethical or not ethical? Will it not going to create a kind of the crime situation in front of me? And that's what is something which will create always a tremendous amount of gap between the industry and the academia. The question comes in terms of that, how we can have this particular challenge into the form of opportunity. A lot of institutions are having their own set of the practices, calling industry professionals, talking to them, sharing your ideas, going for some sort of consulting assignment. But then remember, one of the factors that unless and until you are not contributing to the industry, that is not going to accept your availability, your presence. लाइफ को इतने कॉम्प्लिकेटेड तरीके से समझने के बजाय अगर मैं एक शब्द में कहूं तो आपके कंट्रीब्यूशन हैं जो आपकी एग्जिस्टेंस को साबित करते हैं. And that is fact in terms of your personal life also. Probability is there that, of course, we can have the mother-child relationship. But at the last, at the end of the day, the child is also expecting that mama will cook the food or allow me to little bit more gender unbiased one. The parents will serve the food to him or her. तो कहीं ना कहीं पर इंडस्ट्री को भी ये बात तो समझनी पड़ेगी. And that so much is not because that they are offering a kind of understanding to us. That so much of the understanding is because that we have done something which is for the pleasure, which is for the profit, which is for the well-being of the industry. When the Western societies are developing something called as Facebook as a part of their master thesis work, then the Facebook can get converted into what is called as the Meta. And the Meta is one of the prominent organization or corporate house which have the largest share capital as far as the offering, as far as the market capitalization, as far as the branding or brand equity is concerned. While the Google as the search engine was never being searched by an industry professional, it was the core competency of the academia. And they created out the wisdom of that, will it be possible that you wish to search for something and you can come ahead with something called as that, yes, I wish to search for something and that search is available to my desktop. So that means to say that the technology can play a major role, but you know that the industry is always having one point of focus, that whatever you are producing, they are in the business of selling, although the industry is having a lot of R&D center. But then institutions are primarily responsible to serve, to give something which is valuable to them. The moment you are going to deliver the value to them is the moment that they are going to accept your identity. But right now, what I realized is that a lot of gaps are there between industry versus academia. Now, the question is more important as far as the third dimensions. And when I'm saying third dimension, is because of that reason that when we are talking about anyone who is alone in this world, is trying to figure it out that what is being expected. And a lot of discussions are there. हम बड़ी बातें करते हैं और almost in all the literature, a lot of discussions are there about what is called as skilling. And that will become the part of the third one. Challenge in terms of skilling. Challenge in terms of what is being required and what we are developing. And I'm having a couple of data in front of your screen. अगर आपको screen दिख रही होगी तो आप इसे पढ़ सकते हैं. That nearly 70% of the professionals says that the skill gap is something. Because of this, the productivity is going to get affected. Around $8.5, $1 trillion deficit is there in the revenue. Why? Because of the skill gap. $8.5 trillion is the deficit of the revenue because you are not having the proper, what is called as the skilled person with you. Now, look at the mirror image of this entire set of the thing, that when I'm talking about the skill gap, the kind of the losses that the industry is having, how the reskilling is the important one. Organizations are facing a kind of shortage of skilled employee. Even in that situation, what we are getting is something that is still someone is searching, that where he or she can utilize his or her skills. Now, that is something which is a kind of a space where the two contradictory thoughts are surviving simultaneously. एक ऐसे स्पेस, एक ऐसे जोन में जहां दो कंट्राडिक्टरी थॉट एक ही साथ एक ही जोन में सरप्राइजिंग पार्ट इज दैट दे आर सर्वाइविंग इन द सेम जोन. हमारे पास एक पूरा का पूरा मैन पावर है who believe that he is very much skilled one, and then recruit करने के लिए एक पूरी की पूरी इंडस्ट्री है who believe that no, there is a lot of gap that's there as far as the expectations of them versus the manpower which is expected or which is available to them. As a teacher, I believe that there must be some sort of the bridging the gap which is required. And that is why to bridge this gap, what I introduce is something which is again a kind of the challenge, but for you, it's an opportunity that we really have to bring a lot of innovation in teaching and the research also. Gone those days that we are working on something which is called as that very contemporary to our society, or that seems to be very traditional one. 4 P's of marketing से हम उसे extend करके 7 P's तक ले जाएं. फिर इस बात में, and believe me, allow me to say this message, and quite possible that somebody or someone of you can be disagree with me also, but इस बात में कुछ नहीं रखा हुआ है कि हम 7P को extend करके 10P या 12P तक ले जाएं. Not possible that even the 10P or the 12Ps are going to solve out the symmetry for us. No. We really have to think about that. That's the traditional knowledge that what we are having. Now it's the time to go and think about that what the other innovation that we can add to that traditional body. As a teacher, I believe that how you are whispering the information to your student is something which is the art. पढ़ाना अपने आप में एक scientific art हो गई. And nowadays, if you're not utilizing a couple of tools of AI, you are not creating, you are not trying to figure it out that the attention should be get trapped from your student. So there is a loss of attention from your student also. तो मेरे लिए वो teacher जो अपने students को attentive रख रहा है by means of utilizing number of tools is one of the finest innovation that one can witness inside the classroom. Not only in terms of the classroom, but if I have to extend this one up to the next level, that is called as the research level, again, I really have to think about that. What are the new areas, what the new faces, what the new challenges that we are going to unleash? And that is very important one. So literature work is there, which used to recommend you something in terms of that we should emphasize more in terms of the case study based learning. We should think about more in terms of the simulation and the experimental learning. But apart from this simulation and experimental learning or the case-based learning, we never emphasize what is called as the theater, what is called as the role play, what is called as that, okay, the group or the community in itself is going to interact on a particular problem. And then the group or the community is going to face the challenge of the actual one. We are missing a couple of innovation because we usually believe that this innovation is not the part of education. And believe me that when I'm talking about, I'm very much apt to say this one, like we never used to say that serving to society can become the part of innovation. But remember, one of the fact is that while you are serving to the society, while you are serving someone who is in need of such kind of assistance, that in itself equip your student. जब आपका स्टूडेंट किसी ऐसे को पढ़ाता है, बात सुनने में थोड़ी सी अजीब होगी, बट किसी ऐसे को पढ़ाता है जिसको एजुकेशन की बड़ी जरूरत है, तो वो सिर्फ एजुकेशन को देने का तरीका नहीं सीखता है, वो साथ में और भी बिहेवियर के बहुत से डायमेंशन सीखता है, and those dimensions which are very important. You know that in case of Vedic literature, we always used to talk about the Siksha and Diksha. So the people used to keep on asking this question about that the Siksha is the education, but what is the meaning of the Diksha? And Diksha is something that you can't learn inside the classroom. For this Diksha, you really have to go ahead with what is called as the skill. What is called as that how you are going to learn that skill. Excuse me. What you are going to learn beyond the classroom. So really, I have to figure out as a teacher, we must have to figure it out, this challenge into the form of the opportunity. We have to convert this challenge into the form of opportunity. And that challenge is something that how it can be a little bit more rational. Still, it's going to give you something which is called as hedonic pleasure. एक आपको pleasure भी है, एक learning भी है, एक experience भी है. And remember, one of the fact is that the experience is something which is the predominant, which is the very important. And I think so that industry is accepting out the role of experience, but we as a serving industry never accepted the role of experience. This is the right time that we should think about more the experience as far as those, more the innovation as far as those experiences are concerned. I can cite this example. The moment I start that those who are listening me should go ahead with this particular web link that I'm sharing. और आप में से जितने लोगों ने अपने अपने पॉइंटर लिखे, जिस किसी ने भी मैनेजमेंट लिखा, जिस किसी ने भी एजुकेशन लिखा, जिस किसी ने भी इंडस्ट्री लिखा, जिस किसी ने भी लीडरशिप लिखा, and the moment you are writing and it's going to get in front of your screen, you know that because of this sharing, all of a sudden there was a kind of the curiosity factor that, wow, whatever I'm writing is something which is available and on the screen itself. And that's the feel in itself is going to create, मुझे लगता है कि शायद प्रेजेंटेशन के उस हिस्से में आपकी जो पूरे ब्रेन की एक्टिविटी that was very much increased as compared to the rest of the part or when I'm simply explaining you something. So that means to say that the innovation must be drawn to your academic institution, and this innovation should not be get refined only inside the classroom, but beyond the classroom. You should go and serve someone. You should go and observe someone. You should observe that how the sellers are selling. You should observe that how the contract or the deals are happening between the buyer and the seller, how the bulk buying is happening. And for that thing, we need not to get worried. And that's what the reason is that the teacher is not a teacher. Why? Because he's teaching inside the classroom. He must have to serve like a facilitator. Beyond the classroom, what the extra that you can learn. So That was something which will become the part of what is called as the innovation. Then only the complete circle of innovation can be there. And believe me, if this circle can be get completed, assure, and I'm assuring you, this is the assurance from my side that your value curve will never decline, because anyone and everyone is in need of the new set of the experience. Probably one naya experience है जिसकी वजह से students or the people are enrolling for the education. The precious asset is something that if you are not going to get that experience, nobody is going to put a faith on your shoulder. The very next, the challenge, or you can say the opportunity, is the accreditation and the quality assurance. That's the extended part of what is called as the innovation that we have done actually. Quality standard in terms of the management education, and allow me to say, and I beg to differ here, that the quality standard is not something that we can measure on the behalf of or on the basic wisdom of writing some sort of the number, that you are mapping someone with something and that's how it's happening. In fact, I was talking to one of the prof of a university. He said that, Dr. Tripathy, once it comes to map your course plan with the course learning outcome, that become a very tedious task. And sometimes I keeps on working on that, why this mapping is happening, what's the role of this mapping, and is this mapping is something which is essential inside the classroom, why my classroom is not accepting that this mapping is, and before the classroom, why I'm not ready to accept that one. I'm not denying the fact that this mapping, this kind of the numeric suggestions is something which is required. Why? Because this is the way of managing the things. अगर आप measure नहीं करेंगे, आप manage नहीं कर पाएंगे. But at the same point of time, I largely believe that managing the quality standards is something which should not only because of the accreditations body. Accreditation bodies are validating out the things, but be the part of this particular ecosystem or the first responsible agent who are going to change the entire ecosystem or the behavior of this ecosystem. The very next, you can say, challenge or the opportunity, which and this is a kind of the challenge, but at the same time, since already I told you that the good or the bad both exist simultaneously, the best of the time and the worst of the time simultaneously. So that's why the ethics and the values for which we keeps on asking the question about that, at our time it was not the case, but at this time it's happening like anything. But that's something which is the part of how the society actually feels, what the cultural and ethical value that we are concerning or that we are transferring to our society, in what way the society is responding to us, what kind of the audience that we are catering, and in what way the society is going to accept that audience. So I believe, and largely I believe, that allow the good sense to prevail. And that's why installation of the ethical and the social values inside the education system is something which is very important. Why? Because it's going to solve a number of problems that you are facing in the society itself. Number of problem of the society. It's not something that we are trying to solve out the problem of ethics or the dilemma of ethics. Why? Because we usually believe that this is something which is which is going to create a better society. Yes, of course, it's correct. But at the same point of time, it's very important. Why? Because education is one of the primary source. Your student is one of the primary source so that you can transform the complete society. That's why I wish to quote the very first one, that education is simply the soul of a society. It passes from one generation to another generation. So the code of ethics, code of values is something which is a kind of challenge and a kind of opportunity which is available to us. It's going to improvise the lives of others. It's going to create a better world. And for the next coming generation, the way the world will be is something that the way that you are nurturing this world right now. At this particular time, I wish to play a small video here, which is a kind of the social experiment done by the Paytm. I'm just checking here. And if you are getting the video here, if any one of you can write in the chat box that the video is, you are getting this video here.
Make all the household bill payments yourself? Do you know the circle rate in your area? Do you know the price of gold today? Do you know the exact breakup of your salary?
As the questions unfolded, the stark difference came out visibly.
Do you know the details of the financial documents you're asked to sign? Have you bought a vehicle in your own name without consulting anybody? Have you bought insurance policies unassisted? Do you watch or follow the budget?
Like you think you're doing okay, but then you're like, okay, these are kind of important things that I don't look at.
Do you manage your own finances and earnings unassisted? Do you know how to invest in mutual funds? Do you know the difference between a mutual fund and an SIP? Do you make the investments for your family members or your spouse? Do you file your own income tax return? Now everyone who's in front, could you please turn around and look behind you? Initially when you guys started moving, there wasn't such a big gap. My question is, when did this gap start to occur?
The minute the questions became about managing money, the gap between men and women became very clear and evident.
Women handling certain responsibilities regarding their own life, which were always passed on to someone else in the family or the men.
There was a slight unfairness I realized at that time. But at that point, it seemed normal.
I was upset. I wanted to be at the front of the line. It's like, why don't I know this? Why am I not confident enough to say, yes, I am able to understand this?
It was quite an eye-opener for me because I always...
Now, what I wish that you should appreciate there.
Depended on the men of the family to...
You want to really...
Just allow me. Okay. So what I mean and what I wish that you should appreciate here is that education and empowering someone is not only about that, it's going to create one wisdom in the society. There are the multiple set of the wisdom which we can explore by means of getting the proper set of the nurtured way of educating someone. The very next challenge that I figure it out is that quality and the quality standards, although we are based on the student feedback, the peer review, but then when we are talking about the quality and the quality feedback, I used to quote something which I have learned a few days back, and from this particular slide, I wish to stop myself is that when we are asking for the quality feedback, when we are in need of something which is called as that, how we can improvise more, I keep on reminding myself that the answer should be, or the response should be collected from those who are the actual service owner, who are getting the services. It should not be based on that someone who is having a bird eye view, but it should be from the person who is living along with that particular reality. I think so that's going to create, of course, getting this kind of response is something which is a kind of the challenge because you will never get the right set of responses. But then if you can get the responses, the another opportunity is that the kind of the value that we'll create is something which will certainly send or certainly change the way the education can be believed actually. So at the very final moment, I wish to say that all the teachers who are the part of this webinar, they should always remember that teacher with a desire to teach is the least desired children is equal to the force of 100 corporate educators reformer who have only the passing interest in them. And remember that as a teacher, when I'm talking about what is called as the big frame of the challenges and opportunity, it starts with you, but remember the golden words that start with you, but end with you also. You are the instrument who can convert this challenge into the form of opportunity. Once again, I'm very much thankful to the management of IPEM. That's a very acclaimed institution in North India. almost all the students are aware about this particular institution. I'm aware about this institution since the time of Dr. Goyal. He was very instrumental, and he was the person to whom everyone used to appreciate. If you have learned the basic ABC of management, how it is possible that you have not heard the name of Dr. Goyal. So he started out this wisdom. And of course, this platform, which created and cultivated by the convener and the co-convener of this forthcoming conference, my sincere wishes, my best wishes to them, that they should take care of this conference. And equally thankful to entire management, especially Rajiv ji, you are still there. And thank you very much for hosting this entire event. Namaskar and goodbye to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for broadening our outlook on quality in management, education, and research in today's dynamic environment. There are few questions asked by the participants regarding the topic, which I am going to share with you.
Please.
What attributes are responsible for the gap between academia and industry?
The very first and the fundamental one is that there is a very famous saying that whenever we are listening to respond someone. I think so that the person who just asked this question should always remember this fact. Listening is not to respond someone. Listening is to understand someone. हम इसलिए किसी को सुने क्योंकि हम उसको कुछ जवाब दे सके, इससे बेहतर है कि हम इसलिए सुने कि उसे समझ सके. So primary fundamental attribute which we keep on missing is that we are not listening our potential user. हम उसे सुनते ही नहीं है और हमें लगता है कि हमें पता है. So by the means of the listening, we can decide the value. So that's a very fundamental attribute that we keep on missing.
Thank you, sir. One more question is there. Which attributes affect the industry standards?
This is a very categorical question, that which attributes can affect the industry in standards. In fact, industry is going to work on the behalf of one standard only, and that standard is that what the market is expecting. Industry किसी और standard पे नहीं चलती है. Industry का सिर्फ एक ही standard. Market क्या आपसे expect करता है? The only thing which can match up the expectation of the industry is that what the market is expecting is something which should get easily predicted by the academia. So अगर academia इस बात को predict कर सके that what market is predicting, what market is expecting in the future, that will become a finest possible sync between industry and academia.
Sure, sir. Thank you. One more last question is there. In your view, how can the dilemma between keeping our customer happy and the quality of education be addressed?
Meaningful listening, what I said earlier. It's not that we are very much oriented towards the customer. Customer ka matlab, apologies to all the teachers who are listening me, that a customer ka matlab hamare student nahi hai. Customer ka matlab everyone who is the extended society. So meaningful listening is something which will try to focus, which will try to reduce the dilemma. And when I'm saying meaningful listening, that means it's something which is related with that. It's not all about that all the observations of yours is going to give us a kind of motivation. But there are the couple of observations which can really add the value to us. There are the few observations which will give us the kind of notation that this is not required. This is not to be done. And this is something which is expected. क्या रखना है, क्या छोड़ना है और क्या नया बनाना है. अगर मैं इसे बड़े शॉर्ट में कहूँ तो ये सारी बातें सबसे बेहतर तो मेरी ऑडियंस ही मुझे समझा पाती है. And that's how, whenever I'm thinking about that, how the meaningful or how the gap can be minimized, these three standards should always get mitigated by the institution itself. So that's what the thing that you can also promise.
Thank you, sir, for clarifying the doubts of the participants. I hope everybody got their questions answered. I now request all the participants to kindly fill the feedback form for your certificates, the link for which has already been shared to you in the Zoom chat box. Now, I believe it is the right time to capture this session. I request all the attendees to kindly switch on their cameras so that our technical team can take the screenshot of the same. I request again to kindly turn on their cameras and wait for a few seconds. I request again all the participants to turn on their cameras for a group photograph. Wait for a second. I request again all the attendees to turn on their cameras, please, so that we can take a picture. Thanks a lot, everyone. Now, I request Dr. Mona Sahai, convener of this webinar, to extend vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rajiv sir. And thank you, the entire team of IBM. Thank you, Abhinav sir. Thank you to all the participants for making this webinar such a great success. First of all, I would like to thank Abhinav Tripathy sir for accepting my request to be the speaker for today's international webinar. And sir, you have presented your deliberations in such a way that it has only strengthened my trust in you as a speaker, as an academician, and as a researcher. The kind of PPTs that you showed, the kind of pictures that we found very interesting, the kind of data that were there, and your high-tech modern method of collecting your responses, as well as beautiful quotes. And of course, at the end, we also had a beautiful video to see. All made the session so interactive and so interesting that the session could bind around 400 participants for almost an hour, which is a great thing. Thank you, Abhinav Tripathi, sir, for accepting my request and for being such a great speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I, Dr. Mona Sahai, convener of this international webinar, on behalf of all the dignitaries of IPEM Ghaziabad, extend my vote of thanks to our speaker, distinguished speaker, Abhinav Tripathi, sir, to all the participants who have been connected, who registered for the webinar, and who were throughout connected during the webinar, who showed their interest in this, to all faculty members of the management department and also of IPM Ghaziabad, to the entire team who were incessantly working for the success of the webinar. There are so many people in the background whom we have not been able to see, but they have been working very hard. Thanks to my co-convener, Dr. Suruchi Satsangi. Thanks to our anchor, Rajiv sir. Thanks to Jitendra sir for handling the PPTs. Thanks to Neha ma'am for being there. Thanks for Karishma ma'am. Thanks for Tyagiji. And thanks to the entire team for being there throughout as a strong support. We wish to have many more interactions with you, sir, in the future. And we wish to have similar kind of, very informative sessions, interesting ideas that we can share with one another. I would also like to thank all the management of IPEM for providing us this opportunity for this interactive session. So with this, I would like to end the webinar. Have a good day. Thanks to all. Thanks for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, I would like to end this webinar. Before this, I would request all the participants to turn on their cameras again so that we can take a screenshot of the same. I request again all the participants to turn on their cameras for a screenshot of the same. Just wait for a second. Thank you, everyone. With this, I would like to end this webinar. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you all for joining.